Hi, my name is Nate Sprunger, and I'm a prosthetist and one of the clinical educators here at Fillauer Motion Control. Today, we're going to talk about the Taska Hand, specifically the features that set the Taska Hand apart from all the other multi-articulating hands out there. We're also going to talk about the new features with the Taska HandGen 2, which has been released and is available for purchase from Fillauer Motion Control. A little backstory on the Taska. The inventor and engineer behind the design is Matt Jury. Several years ago, Matt was involved in a mountain bike accident where he temporarily lost use of his upper extremities. That experience led him to thinking about how he could help individuals who experienced limb loss. Matt traveled extensively and talked to many prosthetists who specialize in upper limb prosthetics, specifically multi-articulating hands. Soaked up a lot of the feedback about what was needed or missing in the current devices that we're used to using. Of course, robustness and waterproof, as well as several other features, were discussed. So then Matt took that and went back to the drawing board, and that's how Taska was born. So let's go ahead and get started. I have a lot of information to cover. The Taska. Taska has several unique advantages. We're going to talk a lot today about robustness. What makes the Taska hand the most robust multi-articulating hand out there. I also hear a lot about water resistance thrown around in this field. The Taska hand is truly waterproof, submersible, past the quick disconnect and into that wrist unit. Talk about the Taska HydroSeal technology and how this works just a little bit later. We're also going to talk about ease of use. The Taska hand is a very easy multi-articulating hand for the user to become accustomed to. They're able to jump right in and optimize the functional benefits and grips using the buttons on the dorsal part of the hand, even if the user is not capable of those Emg Trigger grip changes initially. Before we talk about ADLs, I want to talk about indications for the Taska and also some contraindications. Who would I recommend the Taska for? I would recommend the Taska for everybody. There are two contraindications, those being cosmetics and size. The Taska does not have a cosmetic glove option. They're not going to have a cosmetic glove option. So if cosmetic is a very important part of the user's profile, this may not be the hand for them. Also size. At this time, there are two sizes, a medium and a large. In the future, Taska will have a small version available. Let's talk about activity intensity. When we talk about ADLs, the Taska is capable of handling a multitude of activities. Everything from light ADLs, such as cradling a baby, think working in the kitchen, fine motor activities, fine motor skills needed to manipulate small objects and tools, things like that. Taska hand, again, we can use it to grab objects that we want to work on. A good example here is holding a loaf of bread. Moving up one of those medium activities, working with hand tools, and then moving on up into even higher intensity activities. This really is going to open the door to using power tools. That being said, the Taska hand is not indestructible. I always like to say, treat the hand as your own. There are certain activities that are going to be too much, just like all of these terminal devices that we're used to. Hanging off a cliff, in this example, running a jackhammer, probably going to be too much for the hand. I'll mention treating the hand as your own multiple times. I do like to say, if you're going to wear a work glove on the sound side, you should probably wear some type of protective or work glove over the Taska. Let's talk a little bit about waterproof and dustproof. This is the world's first and only waterproof myoelectric hand at this point. It is rated to IP67. That rating is a waterproof and dust rating. Waterproof, submersible for 30 minutes to 1 meter. This really is a great benefit to this hand. Being able to wash and disinfect our hands is extremely important, especially now. Healthcare workers really were early adopters of this hand. Combined with exam gloves, it really makes it a good choice for them. Also mechanics, again, people that need to wash their hands on a frequent basis. Also people working or living in very wet or humid environments. Great option for them. It really is going to prevent that damage, water damage to the hand. Again, we can use it in dusty environments. Think working on a farm or in a field, maybe in a factory. Again, the user is able to wash and clean that hand at the end of that day. One of the things I was really impressed with early on was the resettable knuckle release. We've all fit multi-articulating hands in the past, and one of the biggest issues we've had are digits breaking, right? Whether it be on accident or maybe doing an activity that's just a little bit too intense for that multi-articulating hand. Taska addressed this issue with the resettable knuckle release. Breaks into both flexion and extension depending on where the hand is in its range of motion. These resettable knuckle releases are in all digits, including the thumb. Very easy for the user to reset these digits. If they do break away, to protect the hand, the user simply just needs to reset the hand using that power switch. Okay, so just power cycling the hand will simply reset all of those digits. Impact resistance. So many of the vibration and impacts will be absorbed by the Taska hand. It's going to minimize damages from impact, but there's a lot of cushioning and impact resistance built into the hand, into the fingers, the thumb, the wrist unit. This is all going to reduce vibrations in the socket and really prevent those forces from being translated into that residual limb. Again, as I mentioned earlier, this is really going to open the door to using those power tools, drills, think lawnmowers, rototillers, certain activities like that. Compliant fingers. So let's talk a little bit about compliance here for a minute. The Taska fingers have a lot of compliance built into them. I'm able to splay those digits apart. It really allows us to wedge and place small tools, utensils in between there. For instance, spoons, or think small wrenches, and then I can really place them into that web spacing and close that hand and clamp around that object. Okay. Again, the compliance in the hand and in the fingers is going to absorb those shocks, and it's also going to make the hand a little bit more durable, resistant to those impacts during those higher intensity activities. One of the grips I want to talk about just briefly is the Flexi tool grip. With that Flexi tool grip, it's a great grip where I can, again, put tools and utensils, put this into the hand in a way where I can get 3-4 points of contact. The example I'm going to use is just a simple steak knife, and I'm just simply going to place that in between the second and third digits, and I'm going to ensure that the base of that tool or knife in this situation is placed under the base of that thumb. When I close around this hand, it's really going to grab that knife, okay? And you see I have a good 3-4 points of contact on that. And it's really going to make that almost impossible to slip, okay? Just a great feature, and again, shows the compliance in the digits in this hand. Let's talk about confident gripping for a minute. Taska has flexible fingers. They're going to conform around objects. The Taska hand also has a full finger curl. It's able to pick up and really grasp those very small cylindrical objects. A mechanical pencil, for instance, I can put that in there, and I'm confident that it's not going to slip out. It's also able to conform to many awkwardly shaped objects, and we'll talk about that a little bit later when we do some more of the actual hands-on demonstration. This really is going to give that user great confidence that they will not drop an object when performing an activity. Also, if you look on the Taska hand, it is going to have these silicone grip pads built in all over the hand, around the knuckles and around the top of the palm plate here. Really, again, just gives that user the confidence that they're not going to drop whatever object that they're trying to manipulate or hold. One more thing I want to talk about with confident gripping is the thumb lock. So if I put this Taska hand into that pincer grip with that 1 second hold on that home button, I can go ahead and I can close this, and that's going to lock that thumb against that index finger and give me a true thumb lock. So again, it gives us that confidence of what we're picking up isn't going to slip. I'll kind of show that here with one of these disposable straws. So I'll come in, and then when I pick it up, I have that confidently gripped inside of that pincer grip. Self-calibrating digits. There are encoders built into each of the fingers and the thumb that will calibrate upon initial power up. So if I go ahead and hit the power button here, you see how those digits, the hand's automatically going to open up into that general grasp, right? And all those digits are going to calibrate. This provides a consistent, repeatable motion, such as that pincer grip. Okay. It is important when you do initially power this hand up. It is in free space. Again, we want those fingers to fully calibrate into that full range of motion. That's really going to help with that repeatable, consistent gripping, especially when switching between different Taska grips. The multifunction button panel, again, this is one of those things that really makes this hand easy and very user-friendly. If you look on the dorsal part of the hand, these buttons have several different functions to optimize the user experience. The most distal button here is going to be the home button. The middle button is going to be the Emg button, which we'll talk about a little bit later. And the most proximal button is going to be that hand button. That home button is going to toggle between general grasp, which is our main power grip. Also, if I just touch that home button, it's going to take me into that nice Flexi tool. If you remember, I demonstrated that a few minutes ago. The home button is also going to toggle me into a pincer with a 1 second hold. Okay. These are all preset grips built into that home button. I can't change them, you can't change them, Taska can't change them. So these 3 grips are always going to be available to that user regardless of what settings are in the software or what grips are programmed into the other features of the hand. The hand button, again, that's that most proximal button. This allows us to program and store up to 5 additional grips onto the Taska hand. And again, those can be just cycled through and toggled just by touching that hand button once. These grips can be programmed and modified using the Hand Cal software or the Taska handheld app. This is a screenshot of a couple different pages on that Taska app. Again, this allows that user to program different grips, customize different grips, allows them to select which grip triggers they may want to use, those Emg grip triggers, and also lets them decide if they want to put an idle grip in. Again, something I'll talk about here in just a few minutes. The Taska is capable of 5 Emg grip triggers. So we have a hold open, a long hold open, co-contract, long co-contract, and a double pulse, double impulse. All of these Emg triggers can be set using Hand Cal, the PC software, or the Taska app. These are not available in single site controls, just be aware of that. And these Emg triggers can be disabled using that Emg button. And I'll go into a little bit more detail on that here in the next slide. The time parameters for those Emg grip triggers can be adjusted using that Declination Software to really optimize the performance for that user. That middle button, the Emg button, it can do one of 2 things. It can disable grip triggers, including direct grip control when using pattern recognition, or the user can choose to have that in lock mode or sleep mode. Okay, think walking through the airport, carrying a suitcase, or carrying a bucket of water, or something we just don't want to drop or inadvertently cause an open signal with the hand. Well, if you remember, if we power off the hand and carry an object, walk with an object that way, what happens when we power that hand back on? The hand's going to automatically open up and calibrate, right? And we'll drop whatever we're holding. So this setting will give us that solution where we can just disable the signals to the hand by the touch of that button. And then we can also activate those signals again when we want to unlock that hand. This setting can be adjusted again using the Taska app under settings. Idle grip or idle return, either the user loves this feature or hates it. I would say it's about 50-50. The hand must see an open signal last for this to work. And what this does is this will the Taska hand will automatically go back to a grip or an idle return grip that the user chooses. Again, that last signal must be an open, so this won't automatically happen if the user is clamped around an object. They won't inadvertently get a grip change and drop that object. Again, some people really like to have the hand go back to a relaxed position after a certain amount of time. And again, these time parameters can be adjusted using the clinical software or the user software with my Taska or Hand Cal. This may be confusing to new users, so please explain how this works to them, and this cannot be used if we're using a pattern recognition control system. Some other features, we can turn the Bluetooth on and off here. We do this by holding the hand button in for 1 second, and if I go ahead and hold that hand button in, you see how it turns that Bluetooth light on and off. I'll go ahead and turn it back on. Why is this important? Bluetooth must be on to connect and make changes in the software using the PC or the My Taska app. But it also must be turned off when used with pattern recognition control. Okay, that pattern recognition, CoApt or IBT sense, that is going to be the brains of the system. So that is actually going to take control and talk directly to that Taska hand. So Bluetooth does need to be disabled if using that kind of control system, so there's no interference between that pattern recognition control and the commands given to the actual hand. Another thing that the buttons do is that middle EMG button. I can hold that in, and what that will do, that will activate or deactivate sounds and alarms. So some users don't want to hear that audio feedback, so that's an easy way for them to disable that. Just be aware that's also going to disable the low battery alarm. There are several LEDs on the back of the hand, on that dorsal part of the hand, on that button panel. There's a fault light or alarm, a battery indicator LED. There's also an EMG indicator light. These are all functions of the hand that the user will become familiar with very quickly when using the hand. These diagrams will be included in the user guide packets with the hand or available from the website. A feature of the Taska hand that I really liked from the beginning is the built-in wrist flexion unit. Flexion is very important to the user, right? The user needs to get to midline, they need to perform in that work envelope. Think feeding, hygiene activities, those all become easier when the user can reach their midline. Flexion is very important, and depending on the residual limb length, this can be difficult to incorporate due to the length we're working with. With the built-in flexion wrist, we don't need to worry about the additional space needed for a flexion unit. The user has easy access to the lock-unlock buttons. They're located on the radial and ulnar part of the flexion unit. Very easy for that user to lock and unlock. Lockable in 3 positions. Extension, we have a neutral position, and then 25 degrees of flexion. Also can be unlocked for free motion. And again, what that's going to do is just help with that shock absorption during those activities. Maybe we're using tools that produce a lot of vibration. There is some radial ulnar wrist deviation built into it. It's going to be right around 5 degrees. So let's talk about the Taska Quick Disconnect Wrist. There are some exciting new features with the Taska HandGen 2. The all-new Taska Quick Disconnect Wrist has unlimited passive rotation and dual release buttons built into it. This is really going to prevent unwanted releases from the socket. The new Taska Quick Disconnect Wrist is standard on all Generation 2 Taska hands with a quick disconnect wrist, and it is waterproof across the wrist. The Taska Quick Disconnect Wrist is going to use that Taska HydroSeal technology. It's really going to make this device submersible across that wrist and up to the first opening in the socket. It is compatible with all standard quick disconnect socket connections, including wrist rotators. The Taska HydroSeal technology makes this possible for us to have an IP67 waterproof submersible seal across that wrist unit. And there is a seal ring required, and again, we'll talk about that here very shortly. So attaching the Taska hand to the socket is very easy. We're simply just going to insert the hand into that wrist unit and pronate it around 45 degrees, and that will attach it to the hand. The buttons do not need to be pushed when attaching the hand to that wrist unit. Releasing the Taska hand, we're just going to press both of those buttons and we're going to supinate the hand around 45 degrees. This makes it very easy to attach and remove the Taska hand. Again, this is also a very simple system, and bilateral users are able to easily attach and remove the hand. The Taska Quick Disconnect wrist is compatible with all industry standard socket side quick disconnect wrist units and electric wrist rotators. However, not all systems will be waterproof capable. To have a complete waterproof submersible system, you must use a motion control end cap or wrist rotator, along with that motion control seal ring or a Taska Quick Disconnect lamination collar with a Taska seal ring. The motion control seal ring kit. This is an additional item that we will ask if you want to purchase with your Taska hand. Keep in mind that this needs to be included to have that waterproof submersible Taska hand. The kit contains all the required components to create a waterproof connection to a Fillauer motion control powered end cap or wrist rotator. The seal rings should be replaced once per year at the annual service or if they are torn or split. The seal rings do not require lubrication or general maintenance. Please remember, the seal rings are not compatible with the Gen 1 Taska hands. So those first generation of Taska hands that are out there, those are only waterproof up to that wrist unit. Installing the seal ring is a very, very simple process. Taska did a really good job in designing this. You just want to check the surfaces on the seal ring, where it's going to attach to the hand. Look for dirt or any kind of damage or scratches prior to the installation. If required, you can take a cloth and just clean around the surface. Next thing you're going to do is you're just going to connect that seal ring by sliding it onto the hand, and you're just going to rotate it clockwise. Next step is just to take and tighten that seal ring up using the seal ring installation tool, which comes in the package. You're going to feel a nice little click and you'll know it's in place. Removal of that seal ring is even easier. We're just going to use a pair of side cutters and we're just going to cut through that rigid plastic inner of that seal ring. Once that's cut, we're just simply going to pull the old ring off and simply follow those installation instructions for the new seal ring. The Taska LP or low profile wrist version has always been waterproof submersible across the wrist. This system is going to use a direct laminated collar which the Taska hand then attaches to. This is a great option for your true wrist disarticulation users, where length is always going to be very influential in that prosthetic design. Just like that quick disconnect version, this hand also has that awesome wrist flexion unit built into it. Again, a great feature is that flexion wrist does not add any length. The LP version or low profile version is also going to have 90 degrees of passive rotation built into that wrist system. It is 15 millimeters shorter than the quick disconnect version, a little bit lighter than the quick disconnect wrist. So again, this is going to be that waterproof submersible system, submersible up to that first opening in the socket. Let's talk about immersion limits for the Taska HandGen 2. Those Gen 2 Taska hands are going to be waterproof up to the first opening in the socket. That's going to be the Taska HandGen 2 with the low profile wrist, also the Taska HandGen 2 with a quick disconnect wrist using that seal ring option. Please keep in mind that all Generation 1 hands and Taska HandGen 2s without that hydro seal technology will only be submersible up to that wrist unit. Color and size options. The Taska hand is available in 3 colors, black, sand, and white. There are currently 2 sizes available. We have an 8 1/4 large and a 7 3/4 medium. Specifications for the sizing can be found at taskaprosthetics.com, or you could request a specifications brochure from us. Just keep in mind, if that user is interested in a sand or white colored hand, please contact Motion Control Customer Service. We will send you a demo hand out for that user to see. We really want to make sure that that is the exact color option the user wants. These sand and white hands are a custom build, so once you purchase these hands, we will not accept those on return. The Taska Power System. Taska is going to come with a 2000 milliamp hour battery. It's supplied with each hand, and it's also available for purchase separately. There is a battery saver mode. This is going to increase the battery life. The power mode is going to run the hand at 100% speed and power. That battery saver mode is going to increase the battery life, but it will reduce the strength of that hand by about 25%. Speed is going to be unaffected in either mode. Battery low shutdown, there is an alarm and an LED on that dorsal part of the hand on that button panel. Just know that when that battery capacity gets down to 10%, it is going to flash and beep every 10 seconds. When that battery is completely run down to 0%, the hand is going to completely open and then shut down. Again, another nice feature, that user isn't going to get stuck on that shopping cart or on the subway handle. The hand, every time that battery does run out, that hand is going to open up before it shuts down. There is that nice little magnetic power switch that is included. Again, just a magnetic connection for both your wall and your car chargers. Also, that's where the power button is going to be located on that prosthesis. Caring for your Taska hand. Cleaning. When we want to clean the Taska hand, we want to use light soap or detergent. We really want to stay away from any harsh chemicals that could damage or break down some of the materials in the hand. Think acetone, gasoline, things like that. Alcohol is just fine for spot cleaning this hand. Also, just like all prosthetic components, if they are exposed to salt water, we want to make sure we rinse those thoroughly with fresh water when we're done with that activity. Again, as I mentioned earlier, please treat the hand like your own. Use a protective glove if needed. So let's talk about the complimentary annual service. Taska has an excellent manufacturer's warranty. Please reach out to our motion control customer service for details and also to get some more information on options for Taska's extended warranty. We do have a large loaner pool, so just be aware of that. We will send a loaner while we are servicing the hand. This way your user will not be without a device while we have that hand here in Salt Lake City. Included with each year of warranty service, we're going to update the Taska Hand software. We're going to replace all of those replaceable parts that are damaged or worn. We're also going to do all the performance and functional testing, check the timing of all the different grips. Again, do all the upgrades that are required. We are going to send you a new battery pack when we return that hand to you. So you will receive a new battery pack with each year of warranted annual service. Replaceable parts. Many of the parts of the Taska hand are clinician or user replaceable. There are just a few that aren't. The thumb boot really being one of those. We do want that hand to come back to us for that thumb boot. If you look at this material on the thumb boot, it is a very durable material. If it does get torn, just be aware that the hand is still submersible and waterproof. Okay, all of those waterproof seals are behind that thumb boot. We do want to replace this if it is torn. We just don't want dirt, dust to get caked in there and cause any damage to that thumb rotator motor. Fingertips, the grip plates, the dorsal plates, things like that, these are all replaceable by that user, and some of these spare parts will come in the box with that new Taska hand. Which transitions us directly to what's in the box. In the box, you're going to get that Taska HandGen 2. You're going to get a couple of the top face plates. You're going to get some extra thumb and finger grip tips. You're also going to get all the lamination dummies to complete that fabrication of that prosthesis. You're going to get 2 of the Bluetooth dongles so you can connect to the PC. You're also going to get that Taska T6 screwdriver to help replace some of those replaceable components. Again, you're going to get the Taska battery pack, that 2000 milliamp hour battery. You're going to get that magnetic power switch. You're going to get a wall charger. You're going to get a car charger. Also some universal plugs for the world travelers out there. If you do order that LP version for that wrist disarticulation patient, you will get some additional components. You're going to get an O-ring. You're going to get that lamination collar. You're also going to get the masking plug. This system's also going to come with an Autoblock 13E190 switch block so we can plug everything together. some wrist lubricant, and also a couple wrist set screws that attach that Taska hand to that lamination ring. Things that we do not provide are going to be the electrodes or inputs, the patient side quick disconnect, also the seal rings. Seal rings, again, are going to be additional component and cost. Again, please reach out to Motion Control Customer Service with any questions on that. All the documents, the quick start guide for clinicians, the user guides, the appropriate use guidelines, warranty information, all of these guides are going to be supplied in every box. Also, there'll be some additional guides for that LP, low profile hand. Some fabrication and installations instructions will come with that. Let's talk about Declination Software for a minute. Hand Cal Clinician is a free software download. Again, please reach out to our education team or customer service if you have questions on downloading that. This is going to allow us to make all adjustments, including gains, thresholds, program different grips, custom grips. And we're going to talk about this a little bit later today. We're actually going to go into this clinician software, and I'm going to talk about and go through a lot of different features. There is a Hand Cal user version. This is a patient version with limited features. Taska has also recently updated their app. The mobile app, handheld app, is available for iOS and Android, and it is called My Taska. They did a really great job with this. It's very user-friendly. It allows that user to add, remove grips. It's going to, again, the idle grip, allow us to adjust that. It'll actually allow you to make custom grips using the app. Really nice feature. Really gives that user, empowers that user, again, to just do more. Again, we can change the EMG button settings, turn on and off that battery saver mode. There's also some really neat signal training games. Really helps that user to fine tune that proportional control. At this time, some of the clinician features are limited. There will be a clinician My Taska app available in the near future. Compatibility of the Taska HandGen 2. The Taska HandGen 2 is compatible with many different manufacturers' components. It is compatible with Motion Control's electronic wrist rotators, including the Pro Wrist and the Standard Wrist, the Utah Arms, our preamps systems, so our electrodes, our linear potentiometer, and also those proportional motion control touchpads. Compatible with CoAP Complete Control, Gen 1 and Gen 2 versions. Also compatible with IBT Flex Cell batteries, their Element electrodes, their Sense Pattern Recognition system, and their Morph 2. The Taska HandGen 2 is going to be compatible with Autobach EMG sensors, linear transducer, also the dynamic arm, and the electric wrist rotator. Please be aware, if you are using a dynamic arm, please reach out to our education team. There's just a few settings that we want to help you put into that software just to help everything run optimally. Also going to be compatible with the Touch Bionics EMG sensors, College Park Snap electrodes, and the Steeper Group's line of Aspira elbows. That's going to conclude our Taska Hand training presentation. And now we'll go ahead and dive right into that Hand Cal software. I'm going to go through a lot of the different adjustments and parameters and changes we can make there, as well as talk about some specific grips that really are beneficial to the user. Okay, let's dive into the Taska software. Today we're going to be connecting to a Taska Hand using the Hand Cal Clinician. This software is available for download by Taska certified clinicians. You will have to go to taskaprosthetics.com and download this. You'll need to register, and it'll send you a link, and it'll allow you to download the software. Okay, initially when we go ahead and connect, you're going to see this available hands here. And it's showing me that it's a left. It's also going to give you the serial number information. And it's going to give you the option to connect. So I'm just going to go ahead and hit connect here. And you see up top that sync bar says reading. Okay, initially, when we connect to a brand new hand, you're going to get this pop-up message right away. It's going to say internal counters disabled. I'm just going to go ahead and close that, And I'll talk a little bit about that and why we would want to activate that here in a little bit. This main screen here is called the Assign Grip screen. This Assign Grip screen is really the meat and potatoes of this program. You see down here in the bottom, we have what we call the grip palette. Above that, we have our button select. We have our EMG select, which this is where we're going to program those grips for the hold, long hold, double impulse, etc. The button select are going to directly correlate with that hand button on the dorsal part of the hand. Next to that, EMG select on the left-hand side there, you see where it says idle return. If that is something that your user wants, again, that's where you would drag a grip of your preference into there. This is a drop and drag, click and drag. They did a really good job with the software. It's very user-friendly. So if you look down here on this grip palette, this far left column here under the grip palette, relaxed, open palm, keyboard, dawned off, pointer. These are all passive grips. These grips are not going to have any action. So if you get a call from your patient, your user, and they say, hey, I have this grip program, but nothing's happening when I'm giving it an open and close, please ensure that they don't have one of these passive grips programmed in there. Every other grip in the grip palette is going to have some kind of function. All the grips on this far right column, OK, natural, rock on, all the ones with the wrenches there, these are all going to be custom grips, and we will talk about how to customize a grip here shortly. Also on this main Assign Grips page, if you look up top here, we have an option for autosave. I recommend clicking that autosave all the time. There's nothing like making a whole lot of adjustments and getting to the end of your appointment, and then the hand gets turned off and something doesn't get saved, and now you're back at square one. We also have the option to disconnect, save the hand, or we can load different profiles into the hand. Next to that, we have an American flag there, letting you know that the language is in US. Next to that is our alarm. If there is an alarm that goes off in a hand, you all will get an alarm when you connect to the software. Right to the left of that, you see our battery indicator level. And next to that, we have our settings with several subsettings, and then also training. Okay. So let's talk about this Assign Grips for a minute. Again, like I mentioned, this is all going to be a drop, click and kind of drag thing. So let's drag, if I want to remove a grip, for instance, general grasp here, I'm going to click on it, drag it out of the box, and boom, it's going to automatically go down to where it's home down here in the grip palette. Same thing if I want to put different grips and program them in. I'll just go ahead and I'll grab a few here. I'll grab Dawn and Doff, and I'm going to kind of use walking through this software as an example and show you some of the unique grips to the Taska. Let's grab mud close only. Let's also put that up there. And let's go with one finger trigger. And then I'll throw a fun one like rock on and the hold over here. Okay. Now we've programmed 4 different grips, 3 into the button select, 1 into the EMG select. Let's look at some of the other features on this main page here. If you look over here into the top right corner, we have our sensor graph. So we have our EMG graph here. If I go ahead and give the hand signals, here you go. You're seeing open and close signals, and my hand is actively opening and closing. Okay. You see a couple lines there. And these are going to be thresholds on this EMG graph. If you look at the bottom here, the dashed lines, this is what we call our on threshold. So any signal, any EMG signal that goes above that dashed line, it's going to cause some kind of movement in the hand. These are adjustable, and you can grab them, and if you click on the red balls or the blue balls on the right side for open and close, we can move those up and down. Okay. Currently, this hand is a brand new hand, so it is set on default settings. What I like to do initially is get the hand on a user, have them walk around, maybe raise their hands above their head, try to cause some kind of artifacts, some kind of inadvertent signal in that socket. And we just want to make sure that those inadvertent signals are, 60% or so, 70% of that on threshold. That way it's not causing any interference. If we look above, up here at the solid lines coming across, this is what we call our Emg Trigger Threshold. So if I want to trigger, for instance, a rock-on grip trigger, right? Something fun. I know I need to give it a hold open. So I know that I need to go up and cross that threshold. I'm going to hold it in there. Once it hits that time parameter, it's going to go ahead and it's going to automatically cause that grip change. Okay. Other things we can do down here is we don't have to program a grip to try it and see if it works. Say I want to see what tripod looks like. I simply click on that down in the grip palette, and you're going to see a video of that down in that video box underneath that sensor graph. Same thing if I click on key grip. It's going to give me a video demonstration of what that does. Now, if I want, as a user or a clinician in my office, I want to try that without programming it, I can also just go underneath that video screen. You see that box where it says try out this grip. So I go ahead and click on key grip, then try out this grip, and the hand's going to automatically go there. Okay. And again, I'm stuck in that grip now. If I want to try a different grip, for instance, maybe I want to see what keyboard looks like. Again, I'm going to hit keyboard, try out this grip. Again, that's going to show me a keyboard grip. Now remember, I can give this open and close signals all day long and nothing's going to happen because this is one of those grips that's in that far left-hand column. So it's going to be a passive grip and have no function. If I look underneath that sensor graph, I'm going to see a little tab that says Show More Settings. If I go ahead and click on that Show More Settings, this is where I'm going to get those clinician controls. So I have my smoothing or filtering. So we have our quick, medium, or smooth. Underneath that, we have digital gain. So this is where we would fine-tune our gain in the software. Now, if you need a refresher or you're not sure you remember what something means or some piece of the puzzle, maybe you forgot, you see these little question mark icons all over the software. These are great tools for you. I can simply just hover over signal smoothing, and it's going to bring up a dialog box and tell me exactly what adjustment I'm getting ready to make. Okay. Same with digital gain. And again, these are going to be all over the software. Sensor graph. It's even going to tell me what I'm programming and what kind of programming I'm in the middle of doing. Okay. So really use those question mark icons. Again, they're all over, built in all over the software, and it'll really give you a good refresher before that user comes in. Okay, if I want to go ahead and hit Hide More Settings, that's going to bring that video box up in there. And again, I can click on a multitude of different grips, watch a video, and then again, Apple Spherical. I wonder if that will work. Try out this grip. Automatically is going to put me into that grip and allow me to try that function. Okay. Let's go ahead and move on now and talk about some of this different sub settings. Click on Settings. It's going to bring up 5 different sub settings here. First one, going to go to is Advanced Sensor and Grip Settings. This is going to be our initial setup page. This is what we're going to do, look at before that user comes in and during that initial appointment. This is going to get our initial settings in there. Top left in this first box, you're going to see number of sensors. Are we using dual site or single site? If I switch this from 2 to 1, you see that ungrade the single sensor specific options. The Taska Hand is capable of 3 different controls modes for single site. We have alternating, voluntary closing, or voluntary opening. Underneath that, we can choose our time parameter for our regrip timer, and we can also adjust the time parameter for our auto close. Okay, so those are the 3 adjustments that are just single site specific. We do have several users out there in single site, but the majority of our users are using dual site, so I'm going to go ahead and switch that back. Now that I switch that back to 2 site, you see it grayed out those single sensor specific options. Our next option underneath number of sensors is going to be swap sensors. So this is initially what we're going to do. Even before the user comes in, we can rub our fingers over those electrodes. Just want to make sure that the polarity is okay. Something I like to do right away. And again, we can change polarity very easily by just simply changing this from yes to no. Okay. Underneath that, we have our sensor type. Emg linear is going to be what you're going to use the majority of the time. Other options under there are going to be force sensor resistors. Okay, if we skip down to the bottom, next thing is going to give us our control scheme. So Taska has 2 options. We can use strongest, or we can use first over, right? First over, maybe we're going to use that for a user that's not maybe able to separate their muscle groups as well. If we're getting a lot of crosstalk, maybe we can start them out in first over, get them used to running a myoelectric device. And of course, our strongest is going to be more similar to that differential control. Again, if you have any questions, you can contact us here, the education team, or simply, again, if you just hover over that question mark, again, it's going to bring up exactly what those control methods look like. Skipping across over here to the right side, this initial event sensor and grip settings page, we have our grip trigger parameters. This is where we're going to make changes to those parameters to separate or make it easier and or sometimes more difficult to switch between those different grips using Emg Grip Triggers. If you look at the open hold timer, default is going to go ahead. It's going to be set to 1500 milliseconds, so 1.5 seconds. Underneath that, you see our open long hold timer. So this is the long hold. So what it's doing is it's taking that hold open timer and it's adding it to whatever we decide for the long hold open timer. So you see that this is 1500 milliseconds. If I change that, it's going to automatically do the math for you, and it's going to change it there, change that parameter for you automatically. Okay. Underneath that, we have our co-contraction timer, long co-contraction timer, and then we have our double impulse. Okay. Again, these are all timers that can be fine-tuned and just to optimize the performance for that specific user. Underneath that, we have what we call our trigger mode. I see majority of the people using direct. What this means is we have direct or toggle. And if you fit a lot of myoelectric multi-articulating hand devices, you may already be familiar with these 2 options. Basically, direct is going to go to whatever grip you have assigned to that specific trigger. If we're using toggle, the grip patterns are going to toggle between general grasp. Remember, that's that initial power grip, general grasp. So if I hit my double impulse, it's going to go to whatever grip I have specified for that. If I hit my double impulse again, it's going to go back to general grasp. So it just toggles between. If you want more specific information on that, and please again contact our education team, and we'll get you some documents for that. Underneath that, we have what we call, we have our sensor tuning options. So we have either proportional or digital control. And then underneath that, we have our max digit speed threshold. Options are 75 and 50. Keep this at 75% of sensor range unless you're told to change that. For a majority of the users, that's always going to stay at 75% of sensor range. Coming back up to settings, I'm going to click on that, and now I'm going to drop down and I'm going to go to global grip settings. Okay. Global grip settings, if you look at this is going to give us a way to control several of the parameters and different options that I talked about during that initial PowerPoint presentation. On the left-hand side in that box, you see mouse controls. What the mouse controls are for are basically to adjust the hand to fit different styles of computer mouse that you would buy, aftermarket products you would buy. You can adjust the actual force that the fingers do for right click and left click. The other thing you can also do is adjust the position of those fingers. Several of the aftermarket products, again, will require more fingers to be flexed more. So just options so we can adjust the hand to conform to those different aftermarket products. If you look on the right side, this is where we have our anti-slip. Our anti-slip trigger parameters. This is also where we turn anti-slip on and we turn anti-slip off. So this is where we're going to turn on and off anti-slip. Okay. Now we have two ways to activate our anti-slip. We can either have it set for close sensor or we can have it always on. When it's always on, the grips that do have anti-slip incorporated into them, anti-slip will automatically kick in when you close around that object. If we choose close sensor, underneath that, the anti-slip hold time, this is the parameter of how long we need to give it a close signal before anti-slip will kick in. So if you look at the parameter right now, the default is set up at 1.25 seconds, okay, 1250 milliseconds. If we go down underneath that, we have some options for system controls. This is where, as I mentioned earlier in the presentation, where we would choose whether we're going to use power or economy, and actually power or battery save. Battery save and or economy, again, we're going to use that especially if we're using a different manufacturer's batteries or if we're using a dynamic arm and elbow with the Taska prosthetic. Underneath that, we have our disable battery low shutdown. And again, we can turn that on or off. Enable counters. That initial message that came up when I connected to this brand new hand alerted me that enable counters was off. To turn it and counters on, I simply come to this global grip settings page and I just toggle that button to on. What this is going to do, it's going to track several different things, and it's going to record information that we can pull off of the hand later. Power cycles, battery cycle, fully charged cycles. It also collects some other data, such as what grip patterns are being used and how often. Underneath that, this is where we choose how our middle EMG button, if you remember I talked about that, it's capable of either deactivating or disabling grip triggers so we don't cause inadvertent or automatic grip triggers. Also, that's going to disable pattern recognition commands for direct grip control. The other thing it can do is disable all sensors, right? So that this is going to be a sleep mode or what we call lock mode, and put that hand in that lock position. This is also where we're going to choose that idle grip activation time. If you remember, it has to be, the last signal needs to be an open signal for it to go to that idle grip. And this is where we would adjust that timer, whether it be, again, 10 seconds up to, maybe 40 seconds, maybe a minute, depending on what the user feels comfortable with. And again, if looking through all the software, again, even on this page, we're always going to have those little question icons, question mark icons. Again, don't forget to hover over those. Those will really, really give you an in-depth explanation of the setting or adjustment changes that you're getting ready to make. Okay, let's go back up underneath that Settings tab, and let's go down to Version Encounters. This is a screen that we may ask you to pull up if you're calling us with an issue. It's going to give us a lot of information. It's going to give us a serial number of the current Taska Hand you're connected to. It's going to give us our firmware versions, the hardware version. So a lot of information we may ask you. Underneath that, it's going to give us the system counters. As you remember, it's counting. So it's counting power cycles. Also over here, you see where it says upgrade hand. This is where if for some reason we needed to get a firmware to you, or if there's some kind of firmware that needs to be upgraded in the hand, this is where we would send you that file. You would save that to your computer. You would select that file, and then you would update the firmware in that hand. Settings, I'm going to go ahead and go down to the last one, and that's backup configuration. This is where we're going to create a backup. This is where we're going to save that user's profile to our computer. I'll just go ahead and hit create a backup configuration here. And then it's going to allow me to save this to my computer. Normally I save it with the user's name and date, or initials and date. We can always go back to where we started then. You may have several different configurations for different users. You can save an unlimited number on your computer, and then also if I want to retrieve my backup, I'll hit browse. And again, you see a few HBK hand backup files will pull up. Again, I would just select those and then restore from backup. It happens almost instantly. Very, very quick and easy for us to do that. As far as the training goes, if we click the training tab, and this is some different training than the handheld app has at this point. This training is just at this point going to be for users wanting to practice those Emg grip triggers. So you see here we have hold, long hold, double pulse, co-contraction, long co-contraction. And the way this works, it's just going to run the user through a quick game. I'll just do a hold here, and you see the game starts. And so I can go ahead and I can give it an open signal. I'm going to hold it, and drop it down to the down arrow. Green is going to let me know that I completed the Emg grip trigger successfully. If I do not, it's going to give me a red. It'll go through and it'll give you a score. And again, this is simply just for users to practice hitting those Emg triggers. Okay, at this point, I'm going to go back to that assign grips page, and I'm just going to talk about some unique grips with the Taska. I already showed you the Emg trigger for rock on. The reason I show rock on is one, it's kind of a fun grip, right? But two, really what I want to show is custom grips and how we adjust those. So if I go ahead and click on this rock on, you look underneath the video pane here, what that's going to do is that's going to give us an extra button here. It's going to give us edit. When I hit edit, it's going to take me over to this different page, the editing screen. This is going to allow me to adjust the range of motion of all of the digits, including the thumb. For the thumb, it's also going to allow me to control thumb rotation. Okay, so I can, again, drop and drag these slider bars to get the exact range of motion that I need for an active or passive grip, including thumb rotation. And then it'll allow me to rename that grip. Say I wanted to do a keyboard grip, but I wanted to get all of the other fingers out of the way so I could see. So I'll name this keyboard 1. Okay, so what I'm going to do with this hand is I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to keep the thumb where it is. It's kind of out of the way. My index finger is going to be completely open. My middle finger is going to be closed. My ring finger is going to be closed. I also am going to close that ring finger. So I'm going to bring that the whole way closed. I'm going to go back to assign grips. I'm going to click on keyboard, try out this grip. And now you see that I have an active keyboard grip. Okay, and again, the only thing functional is going to be that one index finger, because if I go back to my edit screen, I close the range of motion on everything else except for that one digit. Okay. Back on this assigned grip screen, you see that I went ahead earlier during the presentation and I pre-selected. So I clicked and dragged a few different grips up here into the button select. So I just want to talk about those. If I hit that hand button again, it's going to take me to donned off. Okay, and you notice this is one of those grips that are in the far left column. So it's a passive grip. So I'm giving it open close signals. Nothing's happening, and that's what I expect with a passive grip. Donned off brings the thumb in and those fingers down together. Very easy, very great grip to put through shirt sleeves, jackets. Also, think of putting a glove on. Just puts the hand in a real nice position and closes it up to get it through things. So if I toggle this hand and I go ahead and push that button again, that's going to put me in what we call mug close only. The way mug close only grip is going to work is it's going to allow me to go ahead and grab a hold of a mug. And I position this glass in here right above the pinky finger. It's going to close, and that pinky finger is going to come underneath there and support it. You can also do that with the ring finger, the middle finger. You can bring in support underneath there. But the important thing to know about mug close only is I can give this thing open signals. I'm giving it multiple open signals right here. We talk with our hands a lot, right? Think cocktail parties or giving a presentation, and I'm talking and I'm giving this thing inadvertent signals. And what I don't want to happen is to accidentally drop something. In mug close only, I have to give it a sustained open signal before it will release the object. There are several of these grips, and you can incorporate this into a custom grip. There's several different scenarios where you would use that type of grip. But just remember, it's not going to open when it sees an open signal unless it sees that sustained open signal. Okay. Another grip that kind of works the same way is going to be our one finger trigger. So if I go ahead and hit my button select, hit that hand button, now I have myself in what I call one finger trigger. What I can do is I can come in and I can grab this drill and I can hold it, and then I can simply run that drill proportionally, okay? Now, every open signal I get and closed signal I give it is going to just operate that trigger finger. When I'm done with using the power tool and I want to completely release it, again, just like mug close only, I need to give it that sustained signal and it will release the object. Okay. That definitely takes some practice for the user to get down, and depending on what type of tool or what manufacturer of drill you're using, you may have to adjust the hand accordingly. So that's going to conclude the portion of the Hand Cal Declination Software tutorial. If you do need further information or assistance, please contact us here at Motion Control. Customer service will be able to get you to our clinical education team, and you can see that information here on the screen. So if you're interested in more information on the Taska HandGen 2, or if you feel you have a patient that this would be a good fit for, please reach out to customer service here at Fillauer Motion Control, Fillauer.com, or TaskaProsthetics.com for more information. We will be happy to provide you with a demo Taska hand for your user. We do have a large demo pool available for trial for your patients. Please contact our loaner demo department for those requests. Thanks for joining this presentation, and we look forward to hearing from you soon.